What's up, everybody? My name is Garrett, and today, if you're still trying to figure out your March Madness bracket, we're less than 24 hours away from the tournament. You came to the right place. By the way, before we get started, if you like this kind of content on my channel, be sure to give a like and leave a comment below. Definitely have time to do this kind of stuff. As someone who's watched an obscene amount of college basketball this year, I can say that it has objectively been a very exciting year, and I'm expecting a really good 2021 NCAA tournament. Let me start by saying these picks are not justified to be 100% correct. So what that means is, in case you don't know, March Madness games typically, whether it's ESPN Tournament Challenge or CBS, wherever you're playing, most of the time the winners in the end pick the champions, right? They pick the Elite 8 correct. They pick the Sweet 16 correct. That's how I'm going to justify my pick. So if you're looking for 100% accuracy in the first round games, I'm not sure that I can promise that to you today. But what I can promise you is that after careful evaluation of all 68 teams in the tournament, these are the ones that I feel have the best chance to make the deepest run. All right, let's start in the West region with the most popular pick to make it deep, Gonzaga. #1 Bulldogs led by Jalen Suggs. Mark Few is a heck of a head coach. Drew Timme, Corey Kispert, Joel Ayayi, who's probably the most underrated player in the country. Really haven't had any COVID issues. They played teams like Virginia and Iowa in the regular season. Definitely take them to win the 116 game. One of the most contested games in the country. This one has been pretty much split right down the middle as far as national perception. Oklahoma and Missouri. Both these teams didn't end the regular season like they would have liked. Austin Reeves is just a pure bucket getter for Oklahoma. You'd never be able to tell by the way that he looks on the basketball court. He's a little undersized. He is definitely the type of player that can win a tournament game by himself. But Missouri, on the other hand, has a senior-laden group. Xavier Pinson's a junior. Jeremiah Tillman is a senior. If you'll remember back in that golden 2017 recruiting class, there's a lot of weapons there, and this is the type of group that can probably win a game on experience alone, especially when you give Oklahoma's backslide. Again, they lost, 5 straight ending the regular season and then lost pretty early in the Big 12 tournament as well. I take Missouri here. Experience wins in March. #5 Creighton taking on #12 UCSB. Take California Santa Barbara. Ja'Cory McLaughlin is probably the best player that you've never heard of. This group is so good on the defensive end. They just beat you to the ball. They beat you off the edge. They won it more. 18-1 in 2021. Creighton, obviously one of those teams that's always at the top of the heap in the Big East. They really should have won their conference tournament. They got blown out to Georgetown head-to-head. Take an upset here. There's usually a 5-12. Like I said, I'm not playing for double-digit seeds to make deep runs, but you do need at least one double-digit pick per region. Here, mine's UCSB. By the way, Creighton was not going to make a run at it the first weekend anyway. So you're not really losing a lot of points here if you go with the upset. Moving on, another popular upset pick, Jason Preston in Ohio, have been getting a lot of attention after winning the MAC. They take on a really good #4 Virginia team. A lot of people have moved toward Ohio in the picks this week. I just don't see it. Jason Preston's a great player, but the rest of the group is not complete around him. Tony Bennett in the pack line defense, he's got a lot of guys back from that 2019 championship team. Experience wins again in March. I think that Virginia has enough to get by this first round game. All right, the next one, the 6-11 game, USC taking on Wichita State or Drake. Never take a team, by the way, that's coming out at the first 4. They just never win. I'm sorry. Give the team with more rest the advantage, especially when you consider COVID protocols. They've had more time to quarantine. Nobody's crazy about this USC team. They've got the Mobley brothers that look like they were the kings of the Pac-12 there for a while. They probably should have won their conference tournament. I still like them here. Take them to beat the first round team, no matter who they're getting, whether it's Drake or Wichita State. Another team that people are pretty low on, #3 Kansas taking on #14 Eastern Washington. Kansas has picked it back up after slowing down toward the middle of the year, but they get a 7-loss Eastern Washington team, a conference champion, sure, but they lost to Oregon by 17 and Arizona by 3. Either way, take Kansas here. This is a very, very low upset odd pick. 7-10 game, a really interesting one. There's a definite clash of styles here. Chris Duarte coming in at nearly 17 points a pop. VCU's a great state school, the A10 champion. I'd go with Oregon here, a little more experienced group. And number 2, Iowa taking on number 15, Grand Canyon. The game's a bit of a sleeper. I don't know, though. Bryce Drew is a great coach. You might have heard of him. Bounced back from his time at Valparaiso. Eventually went to Vanderbilt. Showed some promise there in his first year, but got fired after the second when the Commodores didn't win an SEC game. Iowa's just too good. So many weapons. And I think the thing that people are overlooking with them is the fact that they made a run in 2019. Remember, they knocked off the number 7 seed Cincinnati. That group won the American that year. Iowa has experience. Wieskamp, Bohannon, and obviously Luka Garza, who probably is going to be the National Player of the Year. So definitely take them over Grand Canyon. All right, so what we're going to do is instead of going through the entire regions, we're just going to go through the first round, through the round of 32, through the Sweet 16, through the Elite 8, on to the Final Four in the National Championship games. Number 1, Michigan taking on the Mount or Texas Southern. And that game gets going this afternoon, 4:10 tip. The Mount and Texas Southern would actually be a really interesting game. Texas Southern champions out of the SWAC under Johnny Jones. I do think that they're going to advance to play Michigan and Juwan Howard here. And even without Isaiah Livers, Michigan has plenty enough to get through the first weekend. Take them big. Number 8, LSU taking on St. Bonaventure. And I've actually got St. Bonaventure in this game. I know it's a very unpopular pick, but look how gassed LSU was in the SEC championship game against Alabama. That one came right down to the wire. Will Wade gets so much out of his team. They're so talented. Cam Thomas is the type of scorer that can lead you to a win in March. But St. Bonaventure is out with something to prove. They've been right on the precipice of breaking into the top 25 all season long. 8-9 games are a coin flip anyway. You've got more to gain here by picking St. Bonaventure. I'd go with the Bonnies. Number 5, Colorado taking on number 12, Georgetown. Georgetown's going to be a very popular upset pick. I just don't see it. Great story. Colorado just has too many weapons here. They're the best free throw shooting team in the NCAA. Georgetown reminds me a lot of the SLU team that in 2019 stole a bid. Number 4, Florida State. Number 13, UNC Greensboro. I'm very high on this Florida State team. A lot higher than most people. They definitely have enough to take care of UNCG, the 13th seed. Number 6, BYU taking on number 11, Michigan State or UCLA. And I just don't understand why so many people are picking the 11th seed in this game. Michigan State and Duke got so much love with just these average resumes this year, but Michigan State was so average in the Big Ten. They started out 6-0, lost to Northwestern, a team that struggled to get 2 wins at the end of the regular season. And sure, this was the best conference top to bottom in college basketball this year, but I do not see what everybody else saw in this Michigan State team. There's still talent there. They can still win a game, but BYU, don't forget, they have Matt Harms, who's the transfer from Purdue, was a big part of their 2019 tournament run. He's going to plug in nicely and play in March, and I see BYU winning that game no matter who they get. Number 3, Texas gets a really good Abilene Christian team. Texas is a team that people are running with. I've seen them in the Final Four. I've seen them in the National Championship game, Sweet 16. However, they were just so mediocre down the stretch in the Big 12 that I just don't get it. I don't see where people are coming from. Abilene Christian are a really solid group. One of the top defensive teams in the country. They're going to give you some problems as you match up, but it's not going to be enough to take down Texas. I've got them at least coming out of the first weekend. Yukon Maryland is a really hard game to pick. I've gone back and forth on this one a lot. I just think that James Bouknight is so good, and he gives you a lot coming back for Yukon. Maryland is very mediocre. I think they're honestly lucky that they snuck into the tournament, especially with the way that they were playing at the very beginning of Big Ten play. Yukon's got enough to get past that first game. Number 2, Alabama takes on number 15, Iona. There are so many interesting storylines in this game. I think when Alabama beat Tennessee in early January, everybody was kind of thinking, where did this team come from? But turns out that they're the class of the SEC as Kentucky has a down year. Rick Pitino, how about that story? Remember when he got hired right as the COVID pandemic hit? Not enough to take down Alabama, however. Iona's always in the tournament, so give them credit for that, but Alabama's got more than enough firepower to win. South region, a little more chalky. Baylor taking on Hartford. Take Baylor. Hartford's a good story. They should have made their first tournament appearance. I believe it was their first tournament appearance in 2020. Take Baylor in the 116 game. 8, North Carolina taking on number 9, Wisconsin. Oh, Wisconsin just absolutely crumbled down the stretch. Brad Davison's a lot of fun with this group, but I just don't see them winning a game. North Carolina, on the other hand, aside from the loss to Marquette, really heat up. They got to the ACC semifinal. I like the Heels here. Number 5, Villanova taking on number 12, Winthrop, and this is probably the most popular upset pick that I've seen. Villanova's missing Gillespie. Obviously, he tore his ACL. He's done for the year. But the volatility of Villanova under Jay Wright is on full display, and it's going to showcase closer this weekend too. Villanova either wins a national title or gets knocked out in the first weekend. We're going to see the latter, but it's not going to happen to Winthrop. Winthrop is a really good team. Only one loss on the regular season. Still take them to win this first weekend. You're going to get more points that way. Number 4 Purdue taking on number 13 North Texas. Purdue probably the most overachieving team in the country. Javion Hamlet for North Texas, really good player. This team should have been in the 2020 NCAA tournament. North Texas is a good team. This might be a popular upset pick too, but take Purdue. It's a safer bet here. Number 3 Arkansas taking on Colgate. Colgate's the biggest mystery. They only played 5 teams just because they had such a limited schedule due to COVID-19 complications. Arkansas is the sweetheart of this tournament. They have just been on an absolute rise. 12 straight in-conference games from a run to February to last week in the SEC tournament. Number 6 Texas Tech taking on number 11 Utah State in the Matt Wells Bowl. The football coach for Texas Tech came over from Utah State. Very interesting group. There's a lot to like from Utah State, especially after it won the Mountain West last year. Don't think that they're going to have enough to pull the upset here, especially how motivated Texas Tech is going to be after losing in the first round of the Big 12 tournament. This game is very controversial. Number 7 Florida and number 10 Virginia Tech. A lot of people are thinking that Mike Young and Virginia Tech were vastly underseeded. Remember, this was a top 15 team for most of the year. Back in November, it beat Villanova when Villanova was number 3. Gators have some weapons. They've got Castleton down low. They've got some good shooters. Number 2 Ohio State taking on number 15 Oral Roberts. Ohio State dropped some key games down the stretch, obviously losing in the Big Ten championship against Illinois, lost to Michigan, also lost to Iowa. But remember how good this team was looking, especially leading into that first game against Michigan? Yeah, I think that group, if we see it under Chris Holtmann, who's one of the best coaches in the country, that group can make a very deep run. Down to the Midwest, which is probably the most intriguing region in the tournament in 2021. Number 1 Illinois taking on number 16 Drexel. This group has it all. You got your low post presence, the best inside-out game in the country between Ayo Dosunmu and Kofi Coburn. Take that group. Andre Curbelo just throws it all together off the bench. He is an excellent glue guy. They have so many weapons. One of the most consistent teams in the country, especially since the turn of the calendar to 2021. Take them to make a deep run, starting with this game over Drexel. Probably the hardest game to pick in the entire tournament. Number 8 Loyola Chicago takes on number 9 Georgia Tech. Loyola comes in with a better win-loss record. They also won a really tough Missouri Valley Conference, 24-4 in the season. Georgia Tech at 17-8. Loyola Chicago is a much better defensive team, allowing 15 points per game less than Georgia Tech. However, the Yellow Jackets under Josh Passer have caught fire, won a really good ACC this year in the tournament. This is an absolute toss-up. You can basically flip a coin with this game. Georgia Tech probably has some more weapons, but Loyola Chicago has been here before, made a run to the Final Four in 2018. Sister Jean will be in attendance. I've got Georgia Tech in this game, but I completely understand if you take Loyola Chicago. Don't think that either team's going to make it out of the first weekend anyway. All right, number 5 Tennessee against number 12 Oregon State. Wayne Teagle's bunch that was the sweetheart of the Pac-12 tournament. I actually think that Tennessee got some help here with the way it was seeded. Tennessee is a Jekyll and Hyde group. Really good defensively. Yves Pons broke an SEC tournament record with 9 blocks against Florida. Are you kidding me? The problem is when they get slow down on offense, it's a real problem for Rick Barnes' group. Take Tennessee in this battle of the orange. Very intriguing game. Number 4 Oklahoma State touting the best player in the country, Cade Cunningham. Going to be a lottery pick. Going to be the first overall pick probably in this 2021 NBA draft. Taking on a really good number 13 Liberty team. Liberty shoots the 3 ball like not many other teams in the country do. They're a really, really dangerous team. They'd be a very popular upset pick if they weren't playing Cade Cunningham in Oklahoma State. That group under Mike Boynton can make a deep run. Take them to win this first game. However, Liberty definitely deserves some credit for being a really, really scary team from a 13 seed. Number 6 San Diego State versus number 11 Syracuse. Another really tough game to pick. Virginia is known for its pack line defense, but San Diego State actually might do it better. Syracuse honestly heated up at the right time. They played really well in the ACC tournament, fell at the buzzer against Virginia. Hard to really get a feel for for this group because they don't have a really go-to player. Dolajai has been around for a while. He's seen several NCAA tournaments. Buddy Boeheim plays really well under his dad. Still like San Diego State here. Take defense when it comes to March. Number 3, West Virginia, team that I've got going very deep. This group is different because obviously when you think of a West Virginia team, you're thinking of its fierce press defense. This group separates itself in that it finally has a go-to scorer in Miles McBride. Bob Huggins, with his great defensive team, finally boasting a go-to score of take them over Morehead State. In fact, I haven't seen anybody taking Morehead State in the 3-14 game. No offense to them, they won their conference title and check in as a 14 seed. But yeah, take West Virginia here. Number 7 Clemson and number 10 Rutgers, and this game is an easy pick for me. I cannot understand how people are picking Clemson here. I mentioned Tennessee's kind of a Jekyll and Hyde team. Missouri kind of boasts that effect as well. Clemson is the ultimate Jekyll and Hyde team. You never know what you're going to get out of them offensively. Rutgers, on the other hand, a lot more consistent. Got a win over Illinois, played Michigan close, played Iowa close once. Jacob Young is a total glue guy, 3-and-D player. Also got Ron Harper. Don't think that they're going to drop the ball here. Take them over a very volatile Clemson team. Number 2, Houston taking on Cleveland State. A lot of people had Cleveland State giving Houston a scare here. Quentin Grimes has just caught fire in March. He basically carried them to an AAC title. This group looked really tired. This group is well rested. They do not seem like an upset in the first round candidate. Take Houston here. All right, we're going to speed it up as we move into the round of 32. Starting back with the West region, number 1 Gonzaga takes on number 9 Missouri. I've got Gonzaga making a deep run, obviously. But I do think that if they get a scare, it's probably going to come from a group like Missouri. The problem with the Tigers is you never know what you're going to get out of them, especially in the second half. They had a big lead against Mississippi State. So if Missouri can get a second half lead on Gonzaga, this could definitely be a scary game for Mark Few. Take Gonzaga to get out in the first weekend. Never take a double-digit seed to make it to the Sweet 16. It's too much of a gamble. UCSB, again, with McLaughlin, great run head-to-head here. Take Virginia over UCSB in the second round. Number 6, USC taking on number 3 Kansas. I don't like either one of these teams, honestly, but the Mobley brothers are too much to guard. Kansas, again, has dealt with COVID-19 issues, had to withdraw from the Big 12 tournament. Again, they've just been too volatile for me to try to move them past the first weekend. This was a group that could have won the national championship last year. USC probably just too much on the defensive end, especially with Mobley in the low post. Take the Trojans to move on to the Sweet 16. Iowa taking on number 7 Oregon. Very intriguing matchup, kind of a clash of styles here. I think what it comes down to is that Iowa has the low post presence in Luka Garza that Oregon does not. Take Iowa here to advance in the Sweet 16. All right, over in the round of 32 in the East, number 1 Michigan takes on number 9 St. Bonaventure. You're not really going to get a lot out of taking St. Bonaventure to move on, so gamble here with Michigan. Then number 5 Colorado versus number 4 Florida State. Scotty Barnes and company, one of Leonard Hamilton's best teams. A lot of people think that if he had a team that was going to make the Final Four, it was going to be last year's group. I disagree. I see them making a deep run this year. Take them over Colorado. The number 3 BYU taking on Texas. Again, I don't like the seedings here just because I don't like either one of these teams to make it to the Sweet 16. Since they're head-to-head, Texas just has more weapons. That should be enough to get them past the round of 32. Yukon taking on Alabama. This is an interesting matchup. Could be a close game. Could be on upset alert. Dan Hurley and Nate Oates obviously have very similar ties up there coaching in the Northeast. Take Alabama here just a little more on the offensive end. They play the fastest in the country. They're going to get a lot of possessions on Uconn, and that will probably be enough to outscore them in this game. Under 32, number 1 Baylor taking on number 8 North Carolina. Good matchup. Baylor's just got more weapons. I especially think that they'll separate themselves in the low post. Jonathan Chama-Chachua and Mark Vidal. If you don't know the names, get to know them. Number 5 Villanova taking on number 4 Purdue. Again, I didn't want Purdue to go this deep. I don't have them as making that deep of a run, but a very friendly seeding here. Without Gillespie, Purdue and Travion Williams get it done. Number 6 Texas Tech taking on number 3 Arkansas. Very interesting clash here. Arkansas should have enough to win here. Mac McClung is the type of player that can win you a game by himself. Chris Beard obviously has that deep tournament run coaching experience. But I like the importer Eric Musselman to get it done here. The number 2 Ohio State taking on number 10 Virginia Tech. This game is definitely interesting as well. E.J. Liddell is the type of player that can separate Ohio State from a very good Virginia Tech team. Obviously, Justice Suing on the wing, a lot of fun. Dwayne Washington, a really good spot-up scorer. I like Ohio State to advance in the Sweet 16. Number 1 Illinois taking on number 9 Georgia Tech. Kind of a clash of styles here. This will be a very David versus Goliath matchup. Moses Wright down low for Georgia Tech. Take Illinois here to move on to the Sweet 16. Number 4 Oklahoma State taking on number 5 Tennessee. Tennessee has more of that defensive identity, but if they get in a hole here and can't score, Cade Cunningham is absolutely going to step on their throat. I think he has enough to outscore Tennessee pretty much by himself in this game. This one can actually be a blowout. I'll take Oklahoma State here to get to the Sweet 16. The number 3 West Virginia versus San Diego State. If you like defense, this is going to be the game for you. They've shown that they have what it takes to win the Big 12, so I have them moving on to the Sweet 16. In Houston and Rutgers, this is another interesting game. Rutgers probably has some more size, a little more physicality, but Houston, the bench is just so deep. It starts with Quentin Grimes starting at the guard spot, then it moves all the way into Fabian White, who comes off the bench. Starting to get good. On to the Sweet 16, Gonzaga Virginia. Not much to say about this one. Virginia probably is making too deep of a run for what it has already. Gonzaga floored Virginia in Fort Worth in the regular season as well. Take the Zags in the Sweet 16. Then Iowa, I got them over USC. Again, just too much. Really, the thing that makes Iowa tick is Jordan Bohannon. If he's having an off day, we've seen it against Rutgers, Iowa struggles. Iowa needs him to have a big game against USC. Again, just too many scoring weapons. I've got them getting past the Trojans. Michigan, Florida State. This is where my bracket gets a little controversial. I know that Florida State isn't quite the team that they've been in the past. Not that sleeper team that made a run in 2018 when they were an 8th seed. I've got them topping Michigan without Isaiah Livers. Michigan, obviously one of the most talented teams in the regular season. Hunter Dickinson really separated them down the stretch. True freshman, low post. Still like Florida State. Then number 3, Texas, and number 2, Alabama. I don't like taking Alabama to advance this far, but I definitely don't like Texas getting this far. I'll take Alabama. Again, this group could find itself in some trouble if it can't get those outside shots to fall. I wonder what Alabama's going to do in a situation where they have to slow the game down and can't play the pace of play that they want to. Baylor, Purdue over in the South. Very interesting matchup. Jared Butler, haven't even talked about him in this video. Should be the Big 12 Player of the Year if there weren't Cade Cunningham. Has the NCAA tournament experience, played in 2019. They won a game versus Syracuse. They could have made a run in a national title last year. This group, it's their time. Number 2, Arkansas taking on Ohio State. These two teams probably shouldn't be at this point. However, I do think that Ohio State matches up a little better with a little deeper weapons, obviously with Liddell on the low post. I'll take them to get to the Elite Eight. Illinois, Oklahoma State. What a game that would be if we get that one. Oklahoma State has nobody to match up with Kofi Cockburn inside. And in case you haven't caught on, that's going to be a regular theme. Take the Illini. Number 3, West Virginia over number 2, Houston in my books. Houston's got a great run. It just seems like this team kind of peaks in the Sweet 16. Again, take defense and march, so take press Virginia. On to the Elite Eight. Several interesting matchups. Number 1, Gonzaga taking on number 2, Iowa. And again, we saw these two teams match up in the regular season. It was pretty much no contest. Incredible run, incredible college career comes to an end for Luka Garza in the Elite Eight in my book. Then number 4, Florida State taking on number 2, Alabama. Either one of these teams can move on. I just don't see Alabama making a Final Four run. I've got Florida State here. That makes a little more sense to me. Obviously, a very good defensive team under Leonard Hamilton. It's just time that he gets a team to the Final Four. It's going to happen in 2021. And then number 1, Baylor over number 2, Ohio State. Baylor obviously has taken some signs of regression over the past couple of weeks with losses to Kansas and then Oklahoma State in the Big 12 tournament. Should have won the Big 12 title. They still should have had enough to beat Oklahoma State in that game. I do believe that they're going to return to the group that they were in the regular season come March. This group is so talented, top to bottom. Scott Drew is going to have them in a position where they can outduel Chris Holman and Ohio State. And Illinois and West Virginia, 2 Final Four caliber teams here. Illinois just has way too much off the bench. Once again, Andre Curbelo, top 100 recruit, is the difference for them. Ayo Dosunmu, probably the best individual scorer among Power 5 teams. Take Dosunmu and company to move on to into the Final Four. And here's what you've all been waiting for, the Final Four. Number 1 Gonzaga taking on number 4 Florida State. This is where the rubber finally meets the road for Florida State. A lot of people weren't picking this group to get out of the first weekend. I won't go as far to move them on to the national championship game. Gonzaga, again, just too many weapons. Jalen Suggs is just so good on the offensive and defensive end. He's got definitely has enough to outduel Scotty Barnes and get Gonzaga to its second national title appearance ever. And then Baylor, Illinois, this one is an extremely intriguing matchup. It is so hard for a team to beat a similar opponent twice. Baylor won by 13 head-to-head in the regular season in Indianapolis. Got them clashing again in the Final Four. Still got Baylor winning again. And here's why. Then our national championship game. Two incredible teams, absolutely deserve to be there. Definitely think that this is going to be one of the chalkiest NCAA tournaments ever. Number 1 Gonzaga taking on number 1 Baylor. Two very good defensive teams. Two teams that have been very good against the top 25. Baylor with 7 wins against teams in the polls. Davion Mitchell is a guy that I haven't even mentioned yet, and I cannot believe it. Another guy that probably should be a favorite for first team All-American. Great offensively, great defensively. But Kispert, Suggs, Timmy are just too much. Mark Few finally breaks through, and Gonzaga ousts its demons, winning the national championship game 77-76. So big surprise. I'm sure you could have seen it coming. Gonzaga is definitely the most popular pick to be the first undefeated national champion since 1976. This group has the sauce. They can easily do it. It's going to be a really fun tournament. Like I said, it's going to be very chalky. Let me know who you got. Let me know where you disagree with in the comment section below. Again, if you like this kind of content, be sure to leave a like and subscribe. Let me know in the comment section what you want me to do in the future too. But for now, enjoy March. Don't rip up your bracket. And remember, when your team that you've got making a deep run ultimately loses in an upset pick, remember that the tournament is better than the bracket. Peace, everybody.